Hi there everyone, Lars here with another D&D oriented video brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. Today I want to talk about the art of the TPK, the total party kill. This is one of those things that people love to joke about when they play Dungeons & Dragons, and yet it's also one of those things that people tend to fear and actually avidly avoid, no matter how much they talk about it or joke about it. For those who are not in the know, a TPK is when the entire party is killed in a particular encounter, usually in a boss encounter or in an endgame scenario, or at worst, when the Dungeon Master's like, I hate you guys, and I'm just gonna wipe you out. That's the worst kind of thing, and we want to avoid that right here. And that's actually why I'm making this video, because as a player and as a Dungeon Master, I have set up TPKs, and I've lived through TPKs. And what I have found is this, is that what really makes a good total party kill scenario is when you, as the Dungeon Master, create escapes for the players. So to help illustrate what I mean right here, that there needs to be an escape for the players, I'm actually going to go over one of the more recent sessions that I've been through in Dungeons & Dragons. And that was where the party that I was in, we sailed our way to this island where there was going to be these cults, there's going to be these cultists of chaos creating all these kinds of fantastic storms, and we're trying to tear apart the empire with magical storms. We go on our way to stop them, and we ended up sailing right into the middle of their home base, and we were going to get torn apart. We'd actually fought our way through almost all of their defenses, had managed to make it there, and we foolishly went into their camp. Whoops! Immediately, all these cultists come on in. We knew we were outnumbered. We didn't realize until later on that we were basically outnumbered 7-1. When the initial encounter began, we're like, well, it looks like we're outnumbered 4-1, and we don't have many spells, and a lot of us are down to like 15 or less HP. Holy crud. And the Dungeon Master is like, well, I might just end up killing all you guys. And he was ready to do it. What would it take for us to get out of this total party kill? Because begging to the Dungeon Master wasn't going to solve it. It was, one guy's like, well, we're going to surrender. I was all for grabbing our one knocked out party member and trying to swim our way to safety. But he said, no, we need to surrender. So we surrendered. And with one of the characters bluffing and my character helping to bluff by adding some of the truths to our adventures and making it seem more like we were just washed ashore after this horrible adventure against zombie pirates, which was real. The fake thing is that we were actually there to kill them. We left that part out. The deranged wizard who was running this group of cultists was like, okay, fine, we'll lock you up. We'll play around with you later. And that little break was all that we needed. Our rogue took the time to quickly hide himself, while the rest of us were then put into prison. Well, what are we going to do now? We started thinking along more diplomatic means. Well, then the Dungeon Master split up the party in order to torture us and destroy us. This is a TPK scenario. So our cleric had to basically bluff his way into the cult and then survive an initiation process that was meant to murder him. Through very lucky rolls and some very good convincing, he managed to join the cult. Meanwhile, while the rest of us were thinking about how are we going to be diplomatic and get out of this, the rogue started assassinating people without us knowing about it, and thus combat ensued. So you have a party that's managed to beef themselves up as best as they can on a short rest. So we're nowhere near 100%, but at least we're not at 15 HP anymore, but we are missing most of our spells. Well, we gather up our weapons and it's time to just book it, and we get stuck in this cave with an entire army of cultists and a deranged wizard with her mad magic dogs. We get cornered, and it is TPK time. And like I said, we ended up being actually outnumbered 7-1, and with a lot of heavy hitters coming our way. So this is where you find out that you can do a whole lot with first level spells when you're forced into that particular scenario. And we pulled out all the stops that we had and used everything that we had left in our tank to the best of our advantage. One of our party members did go down. The rest of us also went terribly close to going down, but there was still a way for us to survive. There was no way that we were going to survive simply by killing our way out of this particular scenario. But because our cleric had convinced everyone that now he was a part of the cult, he used those connections then within the cult to convince one of the other cult leaders that the deranged wizard was actually just using them and that she wasn't a true worshiper of chaos. And he did this in the most spectacular way possible. It nearly got him killed, but he managed to convince all these other cultists, while we were killing them, that really it was the wizard who was trying to kill them. And boom, this turned the cult against itself and gave us a chance to escape. That was escape route number 1. The Dungeon Master still could have killed us in that particular scenario. But the second way that we were able to have an out was that the deranged wizard had some very powerful dogs on her side. These thralled, undead ice dog things that she could use. Well, by separating her from her dogs in the heat of the battle, we were able to gang up on her dogs, kill her dogs, and that removed very important power players as the cult was turning in on itself, when they still could have overwhelmed us. And so thanks to what the cleric was doing, as well as us being able to kill the dogs, conditions were set for us to just barely survive this encounter. We managed to kill the deranged wizard. Almost the entire cult got wiped out in the process, and we were all once again down to like 15 HP. But it succeeded. The plan worked. And this was a moment where, again, the Dungeon Master, he was someone who was like, I can totally kill you guys, and I will do it. But he allowed for outs. He allowed us to bluff our way. He allowed the dice to speak for themselves. When we rolled really well, he wasn't going to simply just take those rolls away because this was now his chance to destroy us. And also within the layout of the cultist base, there were things that we could use to our advantage. Secret passageways and rooms that we were able to create bottlenecks. There was a way for us to win this fight, but it was going to be a very long shot. So we avoided a TPK twice in the same session. And it made it so much fun. We were all ready to re-roll new characters. And our Dungeon Master was gunning for us. But by allowing us to have chances to escape, it made the fight so rewarding. And that is what I feel really makes a good TPK, is that you need to let the players have a chance to win. And if they manage to seize that chance, you need to let them. When I did my Gangs of Erlisle campaign, I intended for the campaign to end with a TPK. As the Dungeon Master, I had made the perfect trap, the perfect set of villains and of monsters and of fighters to isolate the different players and destroy them. I had such a great plan in mind. However, the players escaped the TPK by character choice. There was a way out. And the way out was that they had to discover the trap ahead of time. And because of one character's choices, which actually took him away from the party, it got him behind the gangs as they were setting the trap into motion. He could see what they were doing. He was able to alert the rest of the party. They were able to react, unite, and then put up a brilliant last stand. That was just a real meat grinder. And they had to use everything, every spell, every connection, every weapon that they had, calling allies to themselves and everything. It was a hard-won victory. And so, as the Dungeon Master, I did not get my total party kill that I had planned, but it was still fantastic. I had no regrets about it whatsoever because of how well the players had handled the situation. They had done everything in their power to get out, and they managed to succeed. And so I rewarded them for that. And this is something that, again, needs to be remembered when it comes to Dungeons & Dragons. It is a shared storytelling experience. You're not trying to win the game, you're telling a story together. And sometimes the Dungeon Master is really going to gunning for you, is going to create these awful circumstances. But as a dungeon master, I feel like if you give the characters a way to get out of certain bad scenarios, you give them one or two avenues of escape, or one or two avenues to pull a rabbit out of the hat and manage to win. That is what makes these TPK encounters really, really awesome. And even then, should they lose, if the characters go down knowing that they had that chance and they're doing these awesome things and they get their awesome epic moments, even if they die, the players afterwards are like, that was fun. Like, it's sad. I hate it. I hated that I lost my character, but that was still fun. That was engaging. That was rewarding. I feel epic for everything that I did. That is a shared storytelling experience. Now then, how does this translate on over to writing? My answer to that is this. Many, many times as authors, we create some ridiculous scenario that the heroes have to get their way through, and many times they just kind of BS their way through it. Some Deus Ex Machina, some new power-up, or some really obscure thing comes to their aid at the last moment, and then boom, they win. This is an egregious thing that we see all the time in anime and in manga, and unfortunately it's becoming even more prevalent now in Western fiction. It is annoying. It's not rewarding in any kind of way. What is rewarding is that in those impossible moments, the heroes manage to bring things together or do something that is within their wheelhouse in a unique and unexpected way that creates an opening, allowing for them to win. And I think actually a really great instance of this within fiction is in The Incredibles, the first Incredibles movie. So for instance, the great robot that Syndrome builds that goes against the Incredibles, it is an unbeatable robot against other superheroes. It was made to kill superheroes. And yet, by the Incredibles working together, they managed to put the robot onto the back foot, and then Mr. Incredible, using information from earlier on in the movie, is like, oh, it can destroy itself. So if we can somehow trick it into the scenario where we can then use the robot to destroy itself, we can win. And the Incredibles, working together with Frozone, barely managed to pull this off. They only got one shot, but they managed to make it work, and their victory feels earned. It's basically assured that they will be defeated because this is a robot made to kill superheroes. It is almost invincible, and yet they managed to pull it off. And it's not some Deus Ex Machina, but it's something that's been built up throughout the story to lead to that point. And then that is followed up with Syndrome's downfall, because Syndrome is a very powerful, very resourceful villain who knows everything he needs to know to take down superheroes. This guy has killed countless superheroes in his quest for revenge against Mr. Incredible, and he got so dang close. While he wasn't able to kill the Incredibles, he's able to kidnap their son, Jack. He's going to escape. He's going to succeed. It might not be a TPK at this point, but the villain can still win. Now then, how exactly do the Incredibles defeat Syndrome at this point? By again using all of the powers that they have available, things that we've already seen them do earlier in the movie, like throwing Elastigirl, and then Elastigirl using her body to become a parachute. And then what I love is that Mr. Incredible takes the car that he bought using Syndrome's money earlier on, chucks it at Syndrome, destroys part of his plane. Syndrome goes flying towards the turbine engine, and because he's wearing a cape, which we were told earlier that capes are dangerous, he's then sucked in and defeated. The Incredibles should have lost to Syndrome. Syndrome was winning. And it's because of the connections that for instance, that Mr. Incredible had managed to make with Mirage, and by showing that he was compassionate, that he wasn't going to kill her, she then released them, which then allowed them to have a chance to fight against Syndrome and his robot. Then using the information that they had and teamwork, they were able to defeat an invincible robot, and then using the last few resources that they have available, were able to defeat Syndrome. That is so well earned. That is fun. And that is basically the same thing as a TPK encounter. Syndrome should have won, and yet there was an avenue for the good guys to win. What you need to do in your own writing is that you need to create difficult situations for the heroes, but there needs to be avenues for them to get out of those scenarios. There needs to be avenues for them to win. And when you create those, and that makes sense, if you set it up ahead of time, then it feels earned should they succeed. Sometimes your heroes won't succeed in your story, and if they don't succeed, they should go down swinging. They should go down in a way that is benefiting of them. And sometimes you can do the whole George R. R. Martin thing where a character gets a completely horrible death that you weren't expecting. And you know what? That makes sense depending on the story that you're telling. But still, should that character die as a result of their actions, it's way more rewarding than if a character just gets offed. Then that doesn't feel rewarding in any kind of way. There needs to be consequences to character actions. Negative consequences, positive consequences. Characters need to have a chance to win, and even if they should fail, that chance still needs to exist for them. That actually makes their demise way more tragic, way more impactful, and it gets the audience way more invested. So, those are my thoughts from TPK encounters and how you should set it up. Honestly, you as the Dungeon Master are going to have so many different things at your disposal to kill the other players and kill off their characters. What you need to do is you need to give them an avenue. Whether they know it or not, there needs to be a way out of the TPK. And that's what really makes a TPK spicy and fun. So, those are my thoughts right there. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Let me know if you ever had a TPK experience while you were playing Dungeons & Dragons. And if you'd like to support what we do here on our YouTube channel, then please go check out the books that we've published. Links for them are in the description below. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.